And welcome, everyone. We're excited for you to join us. Happy Collegiate Recovery Day. This is ARHE's first live webinar, so we're super excited to have Patrice Salmeri, who's here in Minnesota with me, and then Kitty Harris down in Lubbock, Texas, joining us for this conversation kind of around all things collegiate recovery. So we're keeping it real casual. Patrice, myself, Kitty all know each other, so we're just chatting. So first off, how are you both doing? Kitty, how's stuff in Lubbock?
Thanks, Tim. I'm really glad to be here. Things are slow. Things are, sequestered. But we're doing okay. I've been working from home for 3 weeks now, and that's getting a little bit old. But overall, I think we're pretty blessed. We've got a lot of good things going on. And so, I'm hanging in there.
Perfect. What about you, Patrice?
Yeah, things are good. Happy Collegiate Recovery Day to everybody. And this is a great time for Kitty and I just to chat. We don't get to chat as much as we'd like to, so this is wonderful. And thank you, Tim, for setting us up.
Oh, of course. Yeah, and welcome everyone again. If you just joined to the conversation, we're really excited to have Kitty and Patrice joining us. And yeah, like I mentioned, Patrice is so close, I can almost throw a baseball and get it to her spot. And on that note, also happy Jackie Robinson Day.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, it's weird not having the sports to remind us of everything. But anyway, so we wanted to jump in, and the first kind of question to get the conversation going, we wanted to ask you both, like, how you first kind of got started in all of this, like this broader space of higher ed, collegiate recovery. I know, Kitty, you've done so much with Texas Tech, and Patrice, you did so much with Augsburg, and you're in these kind of new chapters of consulting and other work now. But how'd you both get started? Patrice, I don't know if you want to jump in first, but
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So I had been, prior to starting in collegiate recovery, I had been working at a university teaching and coaching. And then I went to work for a treatment center. And we had started in the treatment center putting together education plans for the folks that were there that wanted to either go back to high school or on to college. And I got so excited about it, it became my new dream job. And so the current director was retiring, and it was a dream for me to get this job. And it really kind of put everything in my career up to that point into one package, and love it. I love college age students. I love the collaboration that we've had with Tech and other schools, and just really was an exciting time for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about you, Kitty?
It's interesting, and Patrice and I have talked about this so many times. Right. She and I ended up at a conference, or it was really a meeting in DC, and I think 2001, and she had just taken over the program at Augsburg, and I had just taken over the program at Texas Tech. Right. And so it's really interesting to think back that happened at the same time. I got involved a little bit earlier. Dr. Carl Anderson had started the program at Texas Tech in 1986. And he did a great job. He was there for, 16, 18 years, and really established the foundation that I was going to actually get to inherit. And so I had known him through, he actually, to be very honest, had been one of my professors. And I'd known him through school and through work and all of that. And we become, really good friends. So anyway, he had decided, I think after 16 years, if my memory serves me correctly, that it was time to retire and go enjoy his ranch that he has. So he came to me and asked me if I would be willing to take over. And I was in private practice at the time, working with my favorite group at that time, adolescents, who are just the worst ever and the hardest. But that's why I loved them. I loved them because they were such a challenge. And I told him no, that I was happy and was doing what I loved, and I didn't want to do that. And so that was in June. He came back to me in August. I told him no again. The search committee contacted me in September, and I told them no. And then, and Patrice knows this story, and then that Thanksgiving, I was having my quiet time on Thanksgiving morning, and I got this tap on the shoulder. And those of you that know what that is. It was just this is what you're supposed to do next.
Right.
So that was on Thursday. I called the search committee on Monday, interviewed on Thursday, and took the job January the 2nd. And I can honestly say it was the greatest experience I've ever had. Like Patrice, I loved it. I loved the students.
Yep.
I loved the idea of being able to help people succeed with their goals and dreams and, make their life what they wanted it to be in recovery. And I stayed there 12 years. I promised to stay 10. I stayed 12. And I really, really, I would not trade those 12 years of my life for anything. I can honestly say that.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. I stayed a little longer in just 18 years totally. And I could say the same thing. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. Real quick, hi, Matt.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Mitzi, Dot, it's great to hear from you. Matt.
Yeah, all sorts of folks. And let me just say, this is so cool to be able to start Collegiate Recovery Day with this kind of interview. It really feels like we're down in Lubbock with you again, Kitty, or we're at some event, just chatting in the hallway. It's so neat to be able to do this. So thank you again for both making the time. So jumping forward a little bit, maybe you both could kind of talk about, okay, so 10 years ago, it was the first day of the first Collegiate Recovery Conference down in Lubbock. That's kind of, what we recognize as ARHE's anniversary. How did it get there? I know you both were really involved, and you talk about how we were part of the Association of Recovery Schools before, but what are some of those memories that kind of come up as far as those days?
Yeah, Kitty, why don't you kick it off? Because I remember vividly being in your office and talking with you, and then the next thing we know, we're in your outer office talking with Teresa Johnston and pitching the idea. So I'll let you tell that part of the story there.
Okay. That's a great memory too. Honestly, all of these are great memories, right? Which is a good thing. So we initially had met a small group of us that to put ARHE together, and we had been a part of, like you said, Tim, ARS, and that was fine, but we just kind of outgrew part of what we felt like their goals and interests were. So we formed ARHE, and then we decided to host our first conference, which was really, I had never hosted a conference. Let me just say that.
We're in the same club then. Yeah, it's fun.
I know, that's right. That is right. I had never hosted a conference. I didn't, there were things I didn't even think about, doing. But I got a hold of Patrice, and she helped me walk through some of that, and Teresa helped me walk through some more stuff, and we all got together, and so we figured out some speakers, and we figured out, really what we wanted was something that would benefit people. That was our whole goal. And I think, and Patrice, you can double check me on this, I think the first conference we had 65 people or 68 or something like that. And it was this excitement of bringing people together.
Absolutely.
It was that excitement of saying, oh my gosh, we're all the same. We're all doing the same things. So why don't you pick it up from there?
Yeah, there was enough energy in the room. When we formed ARS, when all of us went to DC in 2001, there was so much energy in that room to notice that there were people like us that we didn't know were doing things across the country. It was the same for the high schools. It was the same for me meeting Kitty and Lisa Laitman. And that's right at the time I was taking over and Kitty was taking over. But when we got the Collegiate Recovery folks together, it was a whole nother excitement time, because everybody had so much energy around what we did with the students. And the students have always been the center of what we do.
Yeah.
Always.
Absolutely.
There was never a doubt about that was going to be the center of it. And, so many of these people some are still around, but so many have gone on, and our students have gone on to start programs, and it was an exciting time, really exciting time.
Yeah,
And I would just add one thing to that is that
Yeah.
what you said is so true, that the energy of being with each other
Right.
was just, that was incredible. And I think when I thought about this, I thought about what was the base of that. And I think a lot of it was that it was new.
Yep.
And we felt like we had kind of discovered something that was going to make what we did for others so incredibly important.
Right. Right. And it was just going to snowball into, you know, across the country. And it has. I mean, when we think back then, 3 programs, now there's 140 or almost 200 probably, you know?
Yeah. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about. I had to turn the video off real quick. I'm also happy that I didn't realize the stationary video or the picture that comes up like had me in purple anyway for every day, so it's perfect. But look what Patrice gave me. I hope it doesn't come across backwards, but look at that agenda from that meeting.
Oh yeah. Do you remember that, Kitty?
And some of
the higher ed, it's all the higher ed center.
Yeah.
Kevin Jennings. Yep.
With Minetta. Oh my gosh. I was just like, give me that piece of history, please. So
I know. And that was one of the things that we were pretty blessed by, is that the first funding that we ever got at Tech came from SAMHSA.
Right.
And SAMHSA and, oh my gosh, Beverly Watts Davis. I will never forget her, ever. I've tried to find her. I think she's in San Antonio someplace. But Beverly Watts Davis, I went in to see her, and I told her what we were doing. I said, this is what we're doing. We have this program, da-da-da. And she looked me straight in the eyes and she said, well, darling, sounds like you're doing prevention. And she was head of the Center for Prevention for SAMHSA.
Nice.
And I said, well, yes, we're doing relapse prevention. And she said, absolutely, and I can fund that.
Nice.
And so anyway, it was so exciting. And so that was the first funding that we received to write a curriculum and begin some replication. And then then finally, I think, Patrice, and I know you remember this, that one of the biggest validations we got is that the money from SAMHSA was so great, and it was so much in our field. But when we got the first grant from the Department of Education, we were like, yes, they get it. You know, that was exciting.
Yeah, and we're hoping to get them back with us. You know?
That would be so good. And that, when you said Kevin Jennings, Tim, that's what I thought about. I remember working with him, and yeah, I think that as the programs have grown, being able to get the Department Ed back would be fabulous.
Right.
Yeah. Looks like we got to spend some more time in DC. So one thing, you know, I only got into recovery in April of 2011, right? And there's something in there that kind of led to this explosion, right? Where we, you know, I mean, I showed you, we have people, we have Dot On from the UK, we have programs in Canada, we got, you know, outreach from Nigeria and India and South America now. I mean, it's really like taking off domestic and abroad. And back just in February 2012, there was 14 programs. Like, what are some of those? I mean, obviously, it wasn't just one thing that flipped the whole switch, but you know what you just shared, Kitty. Like, what are some of those instances or you know, events or things that happened that kind of led to like where it's at now? You think, both of you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Kitty, I think for you, I mean, definitely was the curriculum, because then you had somebody. I don't know who was doing it first, but who was doing the replication? Was that Matt Russell?
No. So Mandy and I started it. Mandy Baker and I started it. And we wrote the curriculum. And then Matt came on, and Matt and I put Matt in charge of. I put him as project manager for replication.
Right.
So he and I started going to these schools, and we did a pilot, and we started at the University of Colorado, which was a public university, and then Vanderbilt, which was private, and then Oklahoma Community College,
right,
was a community college thing. And then from there, that was a year of the pilot of the curriculum and stuff. And so from there, the next one was Teresa, was at Kennesaw.
Mhm.
And then Matt and I went to Penn State. We went to Michigan first. And that was really, that was a great, and then Penn State, and we just started.
Yep.
And then he kind of took it from there. But you're exactly right. You remembered that really well. That's how, and then one thing led to another, which led to another, which, you know.
Right.
So,
Yep.
and then with your work at Augsburg, that kind of became a foundational piece for showing that not only could it work in public universities, but it could work in private school.
Right.
Yeah. And your model showed that we only took kids that had either 6 months to a year clean and sober, but you took them straight out of treatment to show that worked also.
Yeah, that residence piece really allows for that because you see them every day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I had to pull up one more piece of history. Look at that picture that Patrice sent me.
Oh my.
It must have been like 2013 board meeting or something from you all. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
that was the first group of folks. Taylor Burke.
It was.
Yeah.
That's cool. That was Taylor. Gosh, I haven't thought about Taylor in forever. I loved her.
Yeah.
She was great.
And you know, another key person is the Mackenzie Lectureship Series, because they funded several of our conferences down in Texas there.
They did. Once we kind of got going, and then I met them, and they became really interested in the center. They set up an endowment to help fund the conferences. And also the Mackenzie Lectureship they set up, which was really good. And at that point, and this is a funny story, I think would be funny to tell, is that at that point we'd grown, but not huge, maybe 120, 30 at the conference. But I one day got the courage to contact John Kelly at Harvard.
Yes, right.
And ask him if he would come speak at our conference and be the keynote speaker. And so he was so gracious to say that he would. And I was so excited and nervous, let me say that. And so I had to pick him up at the airport. I was a wreck. I thought, what am I going to say? It's John Kelly. John Kelly's going to be in my car. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And he was the nicest, most down-to-earth, kindest person I had ever met. So, but I think back on that often and remember that I was scared to death.
And now you're just friends, right?
Yeah.
And so many of those people along the way, you know, like David Mineta, Michael Botticelli, Peter Gaumont, you know, all those like people that came into the fold really and now support collegiate recovery all over the place, you know?
That's right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky and had gotten to know Karen Tandy, who was then head of the DEA. And she was so supportive. Well, actually, the truth of the matter is, and I probably should say this to get this on recording for posterity, the way I got into Beverly Watts Davis was Karen Tandy. I went to see her in D.C. at her office in the DEA, which was a little intimidating. And just kind of told her what we were doing and what we had done, and told her that we were looking for some funding or something. And she said, well, I know somebody that might be able to help you. Picked up the phone in her office, called SAMHSA, got Beverly Watts Davis and said, there's somebody in my office you need to meet with. And I had a meeting next week.
Yeah.
So I owe her, and we all owe her, I think, a real debt of gratitude, because she picked up that phone and that started the funding.
That's so cool to hear that. I did not realize that's how it's always those little things like that, like those conversations and someone makes something happen and then it happens from there.
Yeah. I know it goes from there. And if you even dig a little deeper, which makes it just more really crazy. So Karen is a tech graduate and a tech law school graduate. And so that's how I got in to see her. And so someone from our governmental affairs office got me in to see her, and then she picked up the phone and called Beverly Watts Davis, and then, you know, the rest is history kind of thing. And we've stayed friends all these. She actually works with us now as an executive partner in our company. So those kind of relationships, it's like Patrice and I, you know, those relationships last forever.
Right.
They just, they're not, you know, those come and go things.
Yeah, another memory I have of early on was when we had the meeting at Augsburg, and it was you and Mandy and I in my office.
Yeah.
Just laughing up a storm, and just relationships started, and it was just so nice to build on these relationships, you know?
Yeah. That's as good as it gets in my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. What building was their office in at that point?
It was in the chapel building.
Oh, really? On the main floor?
Yeah, we had the conference in the chapel, and it was right across from the chapel. My office was there.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, Texas Tech then built their building. And then several years later, Augsburg built their residence hall and building. So, you know, we're just back and forth, back and forth. It's just, even the students that we're involved with, you know, that it was just always that way.
Yeah. Kitty, where was everything at Tech before the center, for the building?
So before, when I first got there, there was just a regular, you know, academic faculty office. There was an outer office and then three smaller offices, and that's where I was there, and Mandy was there, and Vince was there.
Right.
And George was eventually there, George Comiskey, and it was awful. I mean, literally the students would come in and sit on the floor, and when I had to go teach, I had to step over them to get out of my office. And then there was another room, a bigger room, in another building, and it was called the Serenity Center. And Dr. Anderson had set that up, and it was the room set up for meetings. And we had recovery meetings there every day, and then we had celebration of recovery every Thursday night.
Right.
There would be probably 20, 30 people. And now celebration of recovery is probably 200 people in that room.
Yeah, standing room only. You can't even.
Yeah. So we had a very meager, beginning, but fun. But you know, when I think back about that, that was kind of cool because everybody was so together.
Exactly.
You know, and everybody knew what, you know. My favorite story about Mandy, when I first got there, I went and said, "Do you know where the paper clips would be?" And she said, "No." I was like, "Wait a minute, you're supposed to help, you know?" I don't know. Yeah. So it was fun. Great memories. And like you said, Patrice, so well, the relational part of all of this is what's made it what it is today.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Going back to John Kelly real quick. Do you know he has music videos out there, Kitty?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone else that doesn't know, you should go look them up. They're fantastic.
Yeah. And you know, his latest publication, which I am really excited about, was the evidence-based work of how successful AA is in recovery. Right. And it's like, you know, oh my gosh, what a great contribution to our field at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, he keeps. I mean, were you there in Houston when he spoke? I know you're, but I haven't read his thing yet. Yeah, he was like pre-conference, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he told this cab story. That was the funniest. Have you heard him tell that story before?
I have heard the cab story, but tell it. It's so good.
I'll give the nutshell. He goes up to speak, and he's like, "Wow, I didn't really, think I was going to get here in one piece. I got in the cab from the airport, and I'm kind of sitting in the back, and we're coming up to a red light, and the cab driver goes right through the red light, and John Kelly's like, okay, like that was weird, but we're all right. And then it happens again. And he's like, okay, I need to say something. And the cab driver goes like, no, like I know the city, it's fine. Like we're good. And he comes up to a green light and there's a full stop. And John Kelly's like, what's going on? And he's like, my brother might be coming the other way. The way he said it was so funny, the accent and everything. My gosh. But anyway, so transition a bit to kind of like where things are at now. Obviously, it's a little hectic with the current landscape and everything, but if like considering that or taking that aside, like where do you both kind of see as like the current state of the field, if you had to kind of describe it, knowing all that you've known and seeing all that's happened, like, you know, what's your kind of sense within, you know, how it relates to addiction treatment or higher ed and student affairs as a whole, kind of just the, you know, your take on the current state of the field.
Sure. I think,
Patrice, why don't you take it?
yeah, I'll kick off here. The sheer volume of not only programs, but of students who are involved. And, you know, even during this pandemic, the amount of connection that's been able to be had, not just by professionals, although that has been extremely, extremely important. The student schedule that the interns have put together, every day they have something going. And just that connectedness across the country. And now I heard that we have somebody on from Nigeria, and all of it's just, it's overwhelming in some sense, but it feels remarkable too. And it's just the beginning, because, you know, there's 4,000 universities or colleges and universities, and, you know, we're at 140 and growing. So we got a lot of work to do, and I should say, the things are in a good place right now. I think the landscape, of course, is financially, ARHE could use some more support. I think the work that we're doing in looking towards accreditation for programs, it's really on the mark. And Tim, as executive director, hats off to you. You do a remarkable job in holding this organization together and getting the word out to people that this is something you should be involved in.
I'm just riding the coattails.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, so a couple of things. Number one, Patrice, you're right. I think what part of what we've seen is an international presence, which is exciting. I know that the tech program has gone to Prague, and they have really put together, and Anna, you're on this, and you know, you know what y'all have done, but they've put together a lot of study abroad programs and international work and outreach. I think Tom Kimball has helped start a program in England and some things like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I think that, so I think Patrice is right in terms of the way that it is actually spreading, and that we're able to touch places and people that we maybe haven't gotten to before. But I also have a different perspective too. I mean, I think that's all happening. The other thing that I think I would love to see happen, and this is starting, it's interesting. It starts and it stops, but I think we're going to have to do some significant research to be able to secure funding from places that should be funding ARHE and collegiate recovery programs. And you know what I know from my years in academia is that research talks, and to be able to say, and we've had some. There's been some good research. There's some research going on now, but it's hard because, and Patrice, I think you would probably agree with this as much or more than I could even say. There are no two programs alike.
Correct.
There are no two programs alike. Right. I was so aware of that when I was still at Tech, because people were doing this and people were doing that, and people, you know, and so part of what's hard about the research base for that is finding continuity and consistency.
Right.
And because it's hard to compare apples and oranges and bananas. Right. I mean, it's like, seriously? So, but I do think that one thing going forward, and will be some evidence-based work that shows why we're so successful, what we need to do differently to make that success more noted and known, right, and published, and all of that. And so I think that's one thing that we're going to have to really think about going forward. I think too that that there's going to be a real importance, Tim, in what you're doing, and a real importance in keeping us pulled together, a real importance in keeping those relationships solid. Because if you, I mean, eventually, eventually Patrice and I aren't going to be around, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
down,
Put that energy out there. I don't need
not
that.
anytime soon. No time soon.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that they're going to have to be some more trailblazers.
Yes.
You know, and I think there's some of those out there. You know, I won't call names, but I think there's some of those out there that are going to have to literally not just take our place as the oldie goldies, but they're going to have to be trailblazers.
Right.
They're going to have to say, where's the new track?
Exactly.
You know, so that's kind of my take on where we are and where we need to go.
Yeah.
And that's so helpful. It's so hopeful to see the future.
Yeah.
Because I see people, you know, like Dustin's on the call, and researchers like Noel and Ann Thompson Heller, and that are rising up and saying, this is what I do, and this is important work. And so we do see some of those people rising up, and that's really, really exciting and hopeful for me.
Yeah, I agree. Me too. That gives me a lot of hope going forward.
I might have asked. I'm trying when we were all down there, like a year ago, or maybe a couple times early in 2019. Right, we came down for the awards thing, like in December or something, and then we came down for the board meeting. But I might have asked you, but I always wonder if there's going to be something that happens nationally, like a bill or a lawsuit or something like that. And not that, you know, I don't think that should be necessarily a focus right now, but Kitty, maybe it's more for you too. But do you think anything like that will ever happen where all of a sudden, you know, quickly higher ed understands that this has to be on every college campus? Or is it going to be more kind of the grassroots individual thing where, you know, over time, the landscape of student affairs will change? I know it's a big
right. Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. I probably think about it in a couple of ways, and then Patrice, you can round this out. But I have to believe that the way the numbers are growing, and I think, unfortunately, let me say, with the opioid epidemic and the focus on recovery and some things like that, and I think with, again, some good research, if we could get some good research out there, that higher ed is going to have to see us as an integral part of their community.
Right.
That we have gone so far from I had my first worst experience was this university president saying, well, young lady, why would I want those kind of people on my campus?
Happens all the time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was like, seriously? I could slap you. But anyway, so I think that because we've grown and because our numbers have increased and because we have continued to keep a presence in all of, you know, in higher ed, I think the day will come, I hope within my lifetime, that it will just be, you know, everybody, just like everybody has a football team or a tennis team or a golf team or whatever, they will have a collegiate recovery program.
Yep.
What do you think, Patrice?
Yeah, I would love to see the same thing. I mean, with ONDCP put out that letter, you know, talking to college presidents about having programs on campuses. You know, I was just thinking, we've seen so much with this pandemic around governors.
Yeah.
You know, and governors in states have done some good things, but I wonder if we get all the governors together, if that would be something different. It's not coming from the top for sure. So we might try somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, maybe with mayors. I mean, there's so many different outlets for it. Yeah, because it's, I mean, when you like really boil it down, you know, like what a program costs versus what the output is, it
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. It's just obvious. So
it is.
It's crazy that it's such a battle. That's why, you know, I have faith that it'll, you know, turn into what we're hoping for. Because I think they might also hear program and think it has to be scaled out to what both of, you know, Tech and Augsburg is, and it doesn't have to be that overnight. You know, like Rome wasn't built overnight. It's whole same kind of concept. So
Yeah. I
Yeah.
will say this too, Tim, and again, speaking from, an academic standpoint and knowing, how that all works. The one thing, and I hate saying this. I mean, I feel bad saying it, but it's the truth. The one thing that gets attention is the money raised and the funding.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that I think we probably need to focus on are grants or research, like I said before, that gets the attention, of the university, and fundraising. Well, I will tell you, to be very candid, a lot of the reason that we were able to get the things that we got, like space in the middle of the campus for a building,
Right.
an actual building, all those things, because we raised the money.
Right.
We raised the money, which got their attention, which made them take us seriously.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing, and whether it comes from grants or whether it's from donors like the McKinseys,
Right.
whatever that is, I think it certainly is an optimal way to move forward.
Yep.
And that's your gift too, Kitty. I mean, you are an excellent fundraiser. Not
Oh,
everybody
well.
has those skills. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you really have that skill. And for people out there that have similar skills, we need you in this fight to get programs on campuses, for sure.
Oh, this is perfect plug, by the way, because you probably have the two foremost collegiate recovery fundraisers on this interview right now, and they're both, along with Teresa from Kennesaw State, going to be doing a pre-conference workshop digitally for us in the end of June for the conference. So it's a perfect plug if you all want to learn more about that topic specifically. So I wanted to pivot too to ask, individually what you both are kind of doing now. You heard so much about what you've done with TAC, Kitty, and what you've done with Augsburg, Patrice, and kind of what this current chapter is for both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you start.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you talk about what you're doing?
I retired from tech about 5 years ago, and started a company, and it's called NLW Partners, but it stands for No Life Wasted.
Right.
And all of our focus is on addiction and recovery. And we've done three kind of big projects. One's with universities, and it's a program for entering freshmen that's called Alpha Point, and it talks about mental health, addiction, diversity, civility, relationships, that kind of thing. And that's been fun. I've enjoyed that. Then I have a colleague that I work with who's a neuroscientist, and he and I put together an outcome program to look at treatment outcomes. Is the treatment center helping people? Right. Is it successful? We have not looked at outcomes for treatment. And so it's called Track 9, and we're in about 34 treatment centers right now. And that's been exciting. Let me tell you this, and I won't get into all this, but the data that we have gathered from that program and the data that we've gathered from Alpha Point are incredible. And as soon as we have some time, we're going to write some of it up. We just haven't had time. The final thing, which has become my latest nightmare since the pandemic, is we developed a couple of years ago an online recovery program. It's an online treatment program, 4 weeks, evidence-based. And you do it on your smartphone, you do it on your computer, you do it. And we have had tremendous success with it, and people getting sober and staying sober. And I had waited to launch it just because I just didn't have all the people to manage it. And with the pandemic and everybody wanting to go, to online things, we've been overwhelmed. Yeah. So we went ahead and launched it, and we did the pilot study last spring. So anyway, those are the three things I've been doing, and I just, I don't ever not want to work in this field.
Right.
Let me say that. I think that I feel that calling that Patrice and I have talked about before. I feel like that, the only real good for me is what I can do for others. And
Right.
so that back to you, sister.
All right. Thanks, Kitty. After I was the director at the Step Up program at Augsburg for 15 years, I was promoted to executive director for recovery advancement, where I would take collegiate recovery to other universities and colleges. I would also do some training in the community, some teaching, and well, this is brand new. So here we go. As of last Friday, I have left the university, and I'm kicking off, continuing to work consulting, same thing, helping colleges and universities get started, continuing to do some training. I work with Serve Minnesota, which is, they've started Recovery Corps. It's similar to AmeriCorps, and they place people into recovery settings to help them either get employment or go back to school, or some are placed in recovery high schools, collegiate recovery programs. So that's been something that I'm really excited to continue working with them. And then really the sky's the limit. I'm very open to what the universe has for me. So if anybody has ideas, shoot them my way. Katie and I will consult and figure out who's going to do what on some things. And yeah, so that's where I'm at now. And I feel real hopeful about it. You know, I felt bad for a little bit, and now I'm like, okay, let's get going. So I feel good.
Do this thing.
Yeah.
And I need to mention one thing, because I feel bad that I left this out. Also, my part in the collegiate recovery piece that I'm still doing is I work for Summit Behavioral Healthcare and help them to establish collegiate treatment programs in different settings. And so that's my continuing tie to the collegiate recovery program. And I have all the faith in the world, Tim, that Patrice and I will be on the road and we'll be showing up in different places to help consult and help put things together. And I'm so excited that she's going to be available to do more of that nationally now. So way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. Yeah, Kitty, you juggle a lot. I always remember every time I feel like I'm busy, I think about when I call you and I'm like, how are you doing? You can't even answer because you're like, Tim, I have to be somewhere 14 hours every day this week. That's how I'm doing.
I know. Well, I thank you for that. And I do. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I should just stop or do one thing, but
Never happened.
Yeah, I'm just not wired that way. I'm happy. I love, that's just why this whole pandemic has killed me. I love people. And, between my husband and my dog, they're sick of me, because I'm like, oh my gosh.
Just want to hug somebody here.
I know, I do. And so, anyway, I feel so blessed that, I've had the opportunity to do the things I've done, and the people that I wouldn't trade any of the people I've met on this journey of collegiate recovery. They have, like I said, they're just long-term friendships.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. No, it makes sense. So we're going to start slowly wrapping up. We had some questions kind of sent in different places. This one question was from Jay down at ECU. Hey, Jay. He says, while no two programs are alike, what do you think are some hallmarks of successful programs? So either you feel free to jump in for that one.
Okay. Patrice, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, the first things that come to mind definitely are dedicated staff person, dedicated space for students to hang out that must have a coffee pot. And then institutional support is key. And at a small university like Augsburg, the president is so supportive of the collegiate recovery program. And I'd say those three things: the support, place, dedicated staff, and a place to hang out. Definitely the hallmarks.
Yeah, and I agree with all of those. I think those are absolutely important. And I would add to that that what we found in the research that we did early on is the single most important factor for success was social support. And that's like what Patrice
Yes.
just talked about. There has
Right.
to be social support within the program and within the university. And I think to be
Exactly.
able to do that, you know, you've got to kind of build those relationships like we've said all along. So I think everything Patrice said, and then looking at that within the social support, you know, network. The one other thing that I think is important, I think one of the characteristics that help make programs successful is that there's a sense of a legacy. You know,
Yes.
there are other, you know, there's a legacy of this is what we've had before. This is what we're doing. And a brand new program can still have that by kind of teaming with an existing program.
Yep.
But I think there has to be a legacy of success. And, you know, one of the things that we looked at that was important was our relapse rate. And I think it's important to be able to show that not just what you're doing, but that what you're doing is successful.
Yes.
And so by, you know, focusing on, you know, academic, you know, I thought the things that were really significant for us to keep going with the administration and stuff is our GPAs, our graduation rate, and our relapse rate. And I think being able to measure those and look at those kind of helps you have support.
Yeah. And in addition to those three, there's so many quality of life changes that we see students achieve that are just so important. You know, just what going on to other things. Like if we took the students in collegiate recovery and we said, what are they doing after college? Grad school, full-time work, lawyers, doctors, teachers, accountants, everything, researchers. I mean, it's just, they are the most brilliant and creative students I've ever met in my life. And I will say that till I die because I have enjoyed working with them. And it's true. It's just true.
And I say amen to that. You are so right. I'm so glad you said that. You know, if you look at the physician, I keep thinking that one of our kids is going to find the cure to cancer. You know, that one of our kids is going to do something that will change the world. Because I believe they're the smartest, they're the sweetest, you know, even the ones that I want to kill sometimes, but yeah.
And now it's recorded. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That's right. That's really good. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, it was a good, you know, that comment specifically was a good segue because I was going to ask, you know, all right, if you get either of you two, you know, into a room with a dean of students, you know, or a provost or a president, and they're like, pitch me on collegiate recovery. You got a minute. I mean, you don't need to do the full pitch, but you know, for me, like I'm probably going to try and get some of my story in there. Like I know Patrice loves this quote too, but when I was interning with Botticelli at the White House, like he would always say this piece towards the end of his talks that it's hard to hate up close. You know, like the fact, you know, to, you know, battle down that stigma or beat down the stigma with you know, real stories of, you know, like I was a student in recovery and like, you know, I wouldn't be here today without recovery supports. And then I'm for sure going to pull as much research as I can and, you know, try and pitch the numbers and the student success metrics and the return in that sense, you know, as much as we can get in a minute. But what would you two, you know, try and do in that 60 seconds to convince them?
Well, definitely using stories is very, very helpful. Talking about the return on investment, that not only are you changing one person's life, but think of the ripple effect of who that person touches. Think of the positions that they're going to hold and how many people they're going to touch. I mean, the ripple effect is so incredibly large that we'll touch people that aren't even born yet. When you think about it, that's how big the ripple is. So I'd stick to those kind of things and definitely come prepared with research. Definitely. Katie?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great question, Tim. Connection is unstable, so I hope I'm still on. I think what I would do is I would probably go to a little bit to the emotional thing and say this. And I would talk about no life wasted.
Yes.
You have got a chance to take a group of lives and allow them the opportunity to make something of themselves. And I think that one of the things that we don't think about maybe a lot, maybe enough even, is think about all your kids, Patrice, through all the years, and I think about all mine. Where would those people be today? Where would they be without a chance for an education?
Right.
Where would they be without the opportunity to learn to live within a system like a university system? Where would they be without the guidance that we have all tried to give to the best of our ability? And so I think that I would say, you have a chance, Mr. Provost, Mr. Dean of Students, you have a chance to touch lives that you would have never had a chance to before. Are you going to do it? Are you going to step up and do it?
Right.
And yes, there's so many, and that's one of the things I used to say. I tried not to step on any toes, but I used to say, do you know how many kids on this campus don't really care that they're here? Like, a lot. Do you know how many treasure every single day that they walk on? My 20, my 30, my 100, whatever. And because I used to have professors that would tell me, they come out, I'd see them just, at the student union building or whatever, and this is what they say to me. And I'm sure this has happened to you, Patrice. They say, I love your students.
Absolutely.
I love your students that take my class. And I say, well, thank you. Tell me why. Well, they sit on the front row. They turn in their work on time, and they act like they want to be here. I love them. And I say, so do I.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
Those are the kind of things that I think we sell they're special. They're special, and they should be acknowledged that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So we're going to close up now. I know a lot of folks have, things that go back to back, and I don't want anyone brewing a resentment against us for you going over anything like that. But, obviously it's a chaotic time. What's one thing you all are holding out hope on, or like, what are you looking forward to? Like, what's something positive to end on, whether it's collegiate recovery related or not?
That's a good question.
I'll jump in. Well, go ahead, Patrice.
Nope, all yours.
Okay, I will, because mine is so simple. What I am looking forward to more than anything is for them to open my gym back up. I have this gym I go to. Yeah. I love the people. I have a little network there. I love my trainer, and I just need for them to open the gym up.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay, I'm going to go a little more profound than the gym, even though that's very profound. I think for students that are listening, if you can't hold hope right now, let somebody hold it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And for staff that are out there, for faculty that are listening, you're doing a great job. Just connecting and staying connected with your students during this time is incredible. And for the staff that have participated in virtual meetings, it's changed my life. And I hope it's changed yours too, because I've made new friends, I've seen old friends, and that's what's going to keep the movement going. So I have a lot of hope for collegiate recovery, and I have a lot of hope for myself in my new practice. So.
What a perfect ending note. Thank you both so much, not just for everything that you've done, but for making the time today and adding another piece of history that we can, have archived and put up on our YouTube channel. It's really fantastic. So it's really special to celebrate ARHE's 10-year anniversary with this to kind of kick off the day. So that was a perfect ending note. For everyone else on the call, feel free to join us on Twitter at 3 p.m. Eastern for our Twitter chat. We also have a all recovery speaker meeting on Zoom, just like this kind of webinar format, where we have about 7 speakers this evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Hope everyone's wearing purple, staying safe, taking care of one another. Thank you all for joining, and thanks again, Patrice and Kitty.
Thanks for the opportunity, Tim.
Yeah, great to see you.
Great to see you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.